I am Kim. As far as I remember, throughout my life, my mom has been possessive about me. Not that I am her only child. I have an elder sister, Sandy. Sandy and I looked very different, and that's what bothers me. If we are sisters, then something should be common between us. Sandy is just like my mom, Nyla. They both have curly hairs. But my hairs are straight. How is that possible? Have a look at a pic of my father. Even he had curly hairs, then how can I have straight hairs? I remember I was 14 then. I asked my mother, "Why on the earth do I look different from you and Daddy? Sandy has some facial features, curly hairs, dark skin tone, and harsh voice. But why am I different?" Mom looked confused then and said, "You might look different, but you are my daughter." "But Mom," I said, "I don't want to hear your irrational doubts. You are my daughter, and I don't want to hear this nonsense again," she added. Mom always spied on me. In my high school, I had a crush on the basketball captain, Danny. Oh, how handsome he was! Those huge muscles and that smile! Oh my gosh, I would die for those! I remembered I stalked Danny all the way home and also hid myself from the eyes of my elder sister Sandy. I was happy that I had quizzed Sandy. That day, I found out that Danny lived just 2 blocks away from my house. But as soon as I returned home, I found my mom furious. "Kim, what do you think you are up to?" My mother yelled at me. "You thought I might not know that you are stalking Danny?" She added, "But Mom, how come you know about it?" I asked. "That's not something I must tell you," she replied, and I thought maybe Sandy must have found out. That day, Mom and I had a heated argument. "You are grounded for a week. No friends, no TV, and no going out of the house, not even school," she said. I tried a lot, but my mom was adamant on her decision. That week, I was all home while Sandy laughed and giggled at my pity situation. I felt like breaking her nose, but I knew that was a bad idea, so I remained calm. After that week, I went back to school. Oh God! School never felt so good before. I saw Danny again, but when I approached him, he started ignoring me. I felt terribly bad. I cried in my room. I convinced myself that maybe Danny is not my perfect match. There must be someone else, and I must wait for him. Years passed. I grew up and was about to enter college. My mother started behaving more possessive. She did not allow me to attend parties, neither sleepovers. I was fed up of her, so I confronted her. "Mom, whatever you are doing with me is wrong. I am an adult now and I have my own rights. Why don't you allow me to do whatever I want?" I shouted at her. She was calm then and replied, "Because you are special, and it's my duty to protect you." "No! I am big enough. I can protect myself," I replied. "Kim, you always ask me why do you look different. But did you notice that you are way prettier than Sandy and me? You are beautiful, and that's what bothers me. I can't afford to let anything happen to you." She shared her concern, but I was confused. Was it my fault that I am prettier than other girls? And is it good on Mom's part to interfere in my life? Those questions were never answered. Time flew like sand, and I was an eye candy in college. I remembered all the boys wanted to talk to me. Many approached me for a date, but I didn't like any. But the half semester passed by, and my class had a new entrant, Kenny. Kenny was a heartthrob. His eyes were mesmerizing. As he entered the class, my heart started beating fast. I immediately knew that I had fallen for him. Oh, what a moment it was. That day, I was over the moon. I came back home again to find my mom furious. "Not again, Kim. Kenny is not for you," she said. "Mom, you haven't even met Kenny. How do you always know about what's happening in my life?" I yelled. "That's because I am your mom. That can't be a reason. Now that you have found out, I don't want you to interfere in my life. I am pissed with your ideology. Kenny has just entered the school. Neither I know anything about him nor do you, so please, stay away from us. I beg you." My mom frowned at me and walked away. Days passed, and I constantly looked at Kenny. He might have noticed, and so even he smiled at me. One evening, after the college, Kenny asked me out. I was totally on the moon. As I was about to kiss him, someone pulled me back. Oh no! It was my mom! She dragged me back home. I was shattered. "Mom, this is not right. I like Kenny and even he likes me. I want to have a life with him," I said. "No, that isn't possible. You're my child and you would always be with me," she said. "Why are you acting so possessive? Why don't you let me live my life? If you continue to do so, I would leave you forever and ever," I said. "Leave me and go to your real parents. I knew this day would surely come," she said. "What? My real parents? You are my mom, right?" I cried. "No, I am not your mom. You were born in a very wealthy family. I worked as your nanny. But then, your parents were shifting to New York. I couldn't live without you, so I ran with you and Sandy," she sobbed. "What? My mom ran with me? Then who are my real parents? Why did you separate me from my family? Tell me who my parents are!" I yelled and shouted. My mom told me everything about my parents. That day, I met Kenny and told him everything about my life. Kenny was far more sensible and he said, "Your mother loves you so much that she can't think about parting away from you. You should forgive her as whatever she did was out of pure love." Next day, I met my real parents. They were lovely people. I spent a week with them. They had everything. Huge house, cars, servants, everything. But guess what? I missed my mom. So I told them, "You are my real parents. You gave birth to me. I will always be grateful. But there is someone who loves me more and can die without me. I need to go back to her." I left my real parents, and as I entered my mom's house, I saw her sobbing. "Mom!" I shouted, and she ran and hugged me. That day, I realized what true love is. My mom could not live without me, nor do I.
My life on the street was a constant struggle. I had no parents, no home, and no real place to call my own. I often wondered what it would be like to have a warm bed to sleep in and a proper meal every day. But despite my hardships, I had a big heart and a strong sense of right and wrong. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Nancy. One evening, as the city buzzed with activity around me, I found myself near a small park. My stomach grumbled, a reminder of my empty belly. I watched as people walked past me, wrapped up in their busy lives. I hoped someone might show a bit of kindness and offer me a scrap of food. But the world seemed to have forgotten about me. As I sat, my attention was drawn to a commotion across the street. A store was surrounded by a group of people, their faces a mix of shock and concern. My curiosity grew, and I decided to cautiously approach the scene. I made sure to stay hidden behind a parked car, my ragged clothes blending with the shadows. Peeking out from my hiding spot, I saw two figures rushing out of the store. They were dressed in dark clothes, wearing masks that covered their faces. In their hands were bags filled with items that didn't belong to them. My heart raced as I realized I was witnessing a crime, a theft right before my eyes. Conflicting emotions swirled within me. I knew that stealing was wrong, something I had learned even in my difficult circumstances. But I also felt a pang of fear. I didn't want to get involved or draw attention to myself. Yet, deep down, I understood the importance of what I had seen. I knew that if I didn't do something, those thieves might get away with their wrongdoing. My mind raced as I thought about what to do. I reached into my worn backpack and pulled out an old cracked cell phone that I had found discarded months ago. With trembling hands, I dialed the emergency number for the police and held the phone to my ear, speaking in heavy voice. I described the scene, giving the store's location, the description of the thieves, and the direction they had headed. As I spoke, I glanced nervously around, hoping no one would notice me. I felt a sense of responsibility mixed with fear, but I knew that I had made the right choice. While I was on the phone, the thieves managed to disappear into the labyrinth of alleyways that crisscrossed the city. The distant wail of sirens grew louder, and soon enough a police car pulled up in front of the store. Officers jumped out, determined to investigate the crime. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched from my hiding place. The police officers entered the store and spoke with the distressed store owner. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could sense the frustration in the store owner's gesture. The officers examined the scene, taking notes and photographs. After a while, the police officers returned to their car, their expressions a mix of determination and disappointment. I stayed hidden as they left the area, my heart still racing. I knew I had done the right thing, but I couldn't help but worry about what might happen next. Would the thieves be caught? Would they come looking for me? The night grew darker. I found my way back to the old tree where I usually sought shelter. I curled up under its branches, the rough bark providing a sense of familiarity and comfort. My stomach still ached with hunger, but my mind was occupied with the thoughts of the events I had witnessed. Next morning, with a mix of feeling of relief and anxiety, I knew I had helped, but I was also unsure of what might come of it. I continued my daily routine of searching for bits of food and trying to find safe spots to rest. The day passed slowly, the city's bustling activity a stark contrast to my own uncertain existence. Just as the sun began to set again, I noticed a police officer approaching my makeshift shelter. My heart skipped a beat, my mind racing with worry, but the officer's kind smile and gentle voice put me at ease. He introduced himself as Officer Martinez and thanked me for my call to the police the previous night. He explained that the information I had provided had been crucial in helping them gather evidence and piece together the details of the crime. My eyes widened in surprise and a sense of accomplishment I did. I had made a difference even though I didn't have a permanent home or a fancy life. Officer Martinez handed me a warm meal from a food truck that had been dispatched to assist the community. As I savored each bite, I felt a mixture of emotions, gratitude, relief, and a newfound sense of purpose. I realized that despite my challenging circumstances, I could still have a positive impact on the world around me. In the days that followed, I continued to keep an eye out for anything unusual on the streets. I had become a silent guardian, watching over my city from my unique vantage point. I reported any suspicious activities I witnessed, just like I had that fateful night. And as time went on, my actions didn't go unnoticed. The police officers grew to recognize me and would occasionally stop by to check on me, making sure I was safe and had enough to eat. I had found a sense of belonging, a way to contribute, and a community that cared for me in their own way. As the seasons changed and the city continued to bustle, I would sometimes glance over the old tree that had become my refuge. It stood as a symbol of my strength and resilience, a reminder that even in the toughest of circumstances, a kind heart and a courageous spirit could make a difference, no matter how small.